Have you ever felt that something was watching you from the darkness of a lonely path? Halfway down a dusty trail that night, something was sitting in the distance that looked like a pig. The moon barely outlined its figure in the shadows, but its presence alone froze me. I picked up a stone and tossed it, not to hurt it, just to make noise and scare it away. That was when it stood up. And when it rose on two legs, it didn't move like an ordinary hog. It moved like something else entirely. Its legs were long and pale, shaped like those of a human, but they ended in black, gleaming hooves, as if they were always wet. Its arms, too, resembled human arms. It made no sound. It just tilted its head in a strange way and began walking toward me. Good evening, my dear audience. Thank you for joining us for another episode. I hope tonight you are feeling stronger, more at ease, and ready to hear stories of the inexplicable. This episode is dedicated especially to those who are having a hard day, to those who feel lonely, discouraged, or lost. For those standing at a crossroads, let these stories be a kind of comfort. Remember, you are not alone. We are a community here, one that shares and supports each other, and even the darkest nights eventually pass. That doesn't make these tales any less disturbing. If you prefer not to expose yourself tonight, this may not be the right moment. But if you've already decided to stay, walk with care. Welcome to this collection of memories here at the Phantom House. When I was a child, I often visited my aunt, a woman deeply devout and endlessly kind, known in the neighborhood for her generosity. If someone was hungry, she fed them. If someone needed a few coins, she somehow found a way to help. She had a special love for birds. Her house was filled with the music of canaries, parakeets, and rescued birds of every kind. When my cousins and I stayed overnight, she always repeated the same phrase with her calm voice. Don't worry, just respect Cecilia. We didn't really understand who she meant. Being children, we thought Cecilia might be one of the birds. Or, in our most playful theory, maybe she was the mannequin stored in the sewing room. That room was off limits, and you know how it is with children. The forbidden is always the most tempting. Sometimes we joked that the mannequin was alive, and its name was Cecilia. We never took it seriously, until the night when it was just me and my cousin Yvonne. Usually, there were several cousins staying over, but this time, it was only us two. Maybe that's why we dared to ask. When our aunt repeated her phrase that evening, we asked her directly who Cecilia was. Her face changed in an instant. The warmth disappeared from her smile, replaced by a seriousness that chilled us. She told us not to ask, only to respect her. And then, she added something new. After 9 o'clock, no one was to leave their room. It was the first time she had ever given us such a strict order. Instead of calming our curiosity, it only grew stronger. By 10 o'clock, we were still awake, listening for every sound. Then we heard slow footsteps outside, like bare feet moving across the wooden floor. We thought it might be our aunt going for water, or checking the cages. But fear kept us frozen. Finally, more curious than brave, we peeked through the crack of the door. What we saw will never leave me. A shadow was climbing up the wall, crawling like a spider, until it reached the ceiling. The silhouette moved across the surfaces, as if walking on them was natural. We gasped and locked the door, clinging to each other. We knew we hadn't imagined it. It was a woman's figure, moving along the walls, as though gravity did not exist. We tried to sleep, but it was impossible. Then Yvonne grabbed my arm and whispered that she could hear it again. Footsteps, this time directly above us on the roof. Suddenly, the steps ran down the hallway, and we heard the birds screaming. The cages rattled violently. The cries of the animals filled the house, like something was tearing them apart. We covered our ears, sobbing, too young and terrified to face whatever it was. Sometime before dawn, my aunt rose, her sobs nothing like her usual voice. When we finally opened the door, the scene was horrifying. Several cages were open, birds dead and others wounded, as though something had bitten or ripped at them. My aunt looked at us with anger and grief, saying we hadn't respected Cecilia. We swore we had not left the room, but she didn't believe us. We begged our parents to pick us up, and after that night, we never slept at her house again. My aunt was never the same. She withdrew, stopped receiving visitors, and grew old in silence. People said she died alone, with no one at her side. The house was left abandoned, trapped in legal disputes. The only thing saved was the birds that remained alive. Since then, neighbors say the house still belongs to Cecilia, whatever she is. What do you think Cecilia could have been? I've always been drawn to stories that don't end neatly, that leave us with more questions than answers. Now, let me share another story, one told later by a friend of mine. My name is Diego, from Mazatlan. I don't usually talk about this kind of thing, because people tend to laugh or try to explain it away. I'll only tell you what I saw. I was 17, and a close friend of mine, Mateo, had just lost his mother suddenly. Those were strange days. His father, overwhelmed with everything, asked some of us friends to keep him company. They thought a weekend with his grandparents in the mountains might help. We were dropped off on a Friday evening, arriving just as the sun was disappearing. The house was old, with a tin roof and adobe walls once painted white. His grandmother smelled of cinnamon and firewood. She welcomed us with rice pudding. His grandfather, with rough hands and sharp eyes, looked at us in silence, surprised by our company. The village was tiny, barely a dot on any map, surrounded by hills and dry brush. At night, silence took over. I like quiet places, but this was different. It was the kind of silence that feels like waiting. Out of politeness, I drank the coffee his grandfather offered. Mateo refused. Later, without asking permission, we put on our sweatshirts and went for a walk. The path was narrow, framed by trees, the moon drifting in and out of clouds. Mateo walked ahead, restless, wanting distraction. Soon there were no more houses, just darkness pressing in. That was when we saw it. Something sat in the middle of the path. At first, I thought it was a pig, but its posture was wrong. It was watching us. I threw a stone near it to scare it away. Instead of running, it rose, and it stood on two legs. Not like a pig would, like a person. Its legs were thin, pale, ending in black hooves that gleamed in the moonlight. Its torso was human, but its head was that of a pig, grotesquely large, with wet, glistening flesh and black eyes fixed on us. It made no sound. It tilted its head curiously, then turned and walked slowly into the dark hills, never looking back. We couldn't move. My chest tightened, my breath locked. Then a hand landed on my shoulder. It was Mateo's grandfather. I don't know how he knew we had left, or how he caught up to us. He had a blanket draped over his shoulders and his eyes full of urgency. Without scolding, he motioned us to return. As we walked back in silence, whispers rose around us. At first faint, then clearer. Voices, many voices, chanting in a rhythm. Not church songs, but something anxious, fevered. His grandfather shook his head and said, "We were lucky it was late." Behind the houses, we glimpsed an orange glow, a fire burning somewhere, maybe a bonfire. He urged us to look away. At home, his grandmother waited with 2 cups of tea. It was hot, sweet, with a bitter aftertaste. We drank, and the fear subsided, though unease lingered like smoke. The next morning, the grandfather spoke little. We spent Saturday doing chores in the fields, the radio playing old songs. Nobody suggested walking at night. On Sunday, Mateo's father came to collect us. His grandmother hugged us tightly, as if saying something without words. We drove back in silence. Years later, I heard that she had fallen ill and moved away. The town faded, swallowed by silence. I don't claim we were chased or attacked. I only say we saw a creature that didn't belong to this world, and voices that seemed to celebrate its arrival. The grandfather said we were lucky because it came late. I still wonder what would have happened if it hadn't. And now, one final memory, sent to us by a listener named Leah. She told us how, during the pandemic, she stumbled upon this program. She had been feeling isolated, and here she found strange comfort in stories of animals, hauntings, and things that defy reason. That reminded her of her great-grandmother, who lived in San Juan de Abajo, Nayarit. In her family, there was once a tragedy. The youngest son died in a car accident. Her great-grandmother never overcame the loss. She spent her days crying, her grief endless. One night, when Leah was still a little girl, she dreamed of the deceased relative. She saw him sitting on a stone by the roadside, covered in mud, asking her to tell his mother to let him rest. She described the clothes he wore, details later confirmed by the family, details she couldn't possibly have known. They lit candles, prayed for peace, and in time, the dream stopped. But Leah never forgot. The memory stayed vivid, not frightening, but heavy with sorrow and relief. Her dream brought her family a strange kind of healing. And that, dear listeners, brings me to the end of tonight's journey. Stories like these remind us that the world is far stranger than we can explain. They give form to our deepest fears, but they also help us carry our grief, reminding us that memories have weight, that voices from the past still matter. So I ask you, the next time you feel a chill in the dark, write it down. A smell, a whisper, a fleeting shape. These fragments may one day form a story worth telling. And if you have one, share it. Because here at the Phantom House, your memories, your fears, and your mysteries are never dismissed. They are pieces of the unknown, woven into the night we all share. Thank you for listening, for keeping me company, and for allowing me to keep you company too. Until the next episode, stay safe, stay curious, and never forget sometimes the shadows are watching back.